I read.
Well, I thought we would talk a little bit about the very interesting visit that Calista and I had down at the new Trump Hotel on Pennsylvania Avenue. A lot of the press seemed very confused. You know, if it's not politics the way they learned it, they don't know what to do with it. And Donald Trump is so different, so outside anything they understand, that they're constantly running around trying to figure out how to put him back in a box they can write about. So they were coming up to me and saying, well, why is he here? And shouldn't he be on the campaign trail? And what does this all mean? Well, there are a couple of very smart things involved in today's hotel opening. First of all, it's a reminder that Donald Trump is a genuine building person who creates real value, who takes a building that was abandoned, basically, costing the U.S. government money, nothing good happening. He took it over, spent 4 years, and built a world-class hotel that is going to be an enormous asset for Washington, that's going to create hundreds of permanent jobs. And then if you count the suppliers, it probably goes to well over 1,000 jobs. So in that sense, this is a good reminder he ain't the normal politician. He is, in fact, a genuine businessman who actually builds things. But they had a theme I really liked, which is something I've been talking to Trump about for almost a year. Under budget, ahead of schedule. That's what they did. Now, Ivanka deserves a lot of the credit because Ivanka ran this particular project for the family. But it's very typical of the Trump model. And it allowed Trump to go back and pick up two of his greatest civic successes. First, the skating rink, the Woolman skating rink in Central Park, where the city of New York, when the rink broke in 1980, the city of New York tried a very fancy, very complicated, very expensive method. What happened was the ice making broke. Well, you can't have a skating rink with no ice. So they, instead of going in a practical way to somebody who knew what they were doing, they went to some firm in Florida that had this fancy theoretical model that didn't work. And they spend years trying to get it to work, and they spent something like $13 million trying to get it to work. And Trump's watching this from his apartment, looking out, thinking, this is crazy. This was a very, very popular skating rink in Central Park. Finally, he publicly attacked the city, said how incompetent they were, how embarrassing it was, and the mayor said, okay, I'm going to take you up on it, smart aleck. You have 6 months, and you have, I think it was $3 million. He gets it done in 4 months for $2.5 million. And I love the story he tells in his book, The Art of the Deal, where he has an entire chapter about the skating rink. Because he says, once the city took him up on the challenge, he realized that he didn't know anything about making a skating rink. And he said to himself, who does skating rinks? And he came up with an interesting answer: Canadians. So he found the largest Canadian skating rink manufacturing company. They flew into New York. They looked at the problem. They came to see him and they said, this is going to be very embarrassing. This is so easy, it's stupid. And so they came in ahead of schedule, under budget. I was so excited by this as a way of reminding people how profoundly different Donald Trump is from normal politicians that I called Rudy Giuliani because he knew about the story. He didn't get to be mayor until about a decade later. But I was telling him, he said, oh, that's nothing. He said, what's really exciting is that there was a Ferry Point Park in the Bronx. Both Giuliani and Bloomberg, very aggressive, entrepreneurial, tough guys, both had tried to turn this park into a public golf course. And they had a bunch of contracts with guys who would take the dirt from one side of the park, move it to the other side, then take the dirt back from that side to the first side. It was all make work to make money for these guys who were ripping off the city. So they called in Trump, and they said, all right, you do lots of golf courses. Would you create a public golf course and get it done? He steps in, he does it under budget, ahead of schedule. It is today a great golf course. Lots of people play on it every single year. So here you have two public sector examples of the Trump model. under budget, ahead of schedule. So now he had a chance to take us to a building that 4 years ago was unused, and to show us how he had taken it's a beautiful 1899 historic structure. It was the U.S. Post Office, and it's terrific, but it's really old, and it's really a different style. And they thought through how to build a gorgeous hotel inside the framework of the post office, how to do it with an enormous atrium which shows off the metal work that was, because in 1899 working with iron and steel was a big deal. That's the era where you get the Eiffel Tower. It's the era where you get the Brooklyn Bridge. You get some of the great British train stations. People loved working with a combination of stone and iron and steel. And this was typical of that era. So with Ivanka's leadership, but within the framework that Donald Trump had created, they bring in this hotel. Fabulous quality. And this is the other thing to remember. It's not just ahead of schedule, under budget. I thought they should add a third phrase: high quality. Skating rink, working today, high quality. Golf course in the Bronx, working today, high quality. Brand new hotel in Washington based on the 1899 post office, high quality. And so Trump, in a sense, and the speech he gave, I thought was very typical. The National Press Corps didn't cover it because they're too stuck up or something to do something as simple as covering a hotel opening, and they didn't get it. They literally do not understand that effective construction, getting something done, not giving a speech, not making a promise, not introducing a bill, actually getting something done, is the key to understanding Donald Trump. He actually wants to go into the inner city and fix things. He wants to take our infrastructure and fix it. He wants to take our military and rebuild it. He wants to take the Veterans Administration and get it working. This is such a totally different model from normal politics that, frankly, most of our political reporters can't cover it. They have no idea how to cover it because it's outside, whatever they were trained in school and whatever they talk to each other about and gossip about. So Trump was setting up a perfect case study in who he is and what he does and how effective he can be. And then you apply it to the government. Now, why does this matter in the long run? Well, first of all, the U.S. government's broken. The bureaucracies don't work. The civil service rules now make it impossible to get rid of people who are bad, incompetent, or corrupt. The fact is you can't manage the federal government unless you change the rules to allow serious management. In addition, it just doesn't deliver. It can't get the job done. When you learn that at the Veterans Administration, after all these years of talk, 1 out of every 3 calls to the suicide hotline rolls over into voicemail. Think about that. You're a veteran. It's 2 a.m. You're desperate. You're lonely. You're thinking about suicide. You think, I want to talk to one last person. So you call the Veterans Administration, created by the taxpayers to help you, and you get voicemail. I mean, could anything be more stupidly destructive? And so Trump represents driving a totally new approach. Now, this whole notion of high quality, under budget, ahead of schedule means every budget analysis you get right now will be wrong. Because every budget analysis you get is going to say, gee, if we use the old bureaucracy, the old regulations, the old slow process, the usual cost overruns, this is what it's going to cost. But what if you apply the Donald J. Trump model? What if you insist on people doing their jobs? What if you insist on getting it done as rapidly as possible, as inexpensively as possible, and with a guaranteed high quality? Just think about what a veterans hospital built by Donald Trump would be like compared to what we currently have. Now, Lisa Falsey says, what did Clinton ever do under budget and ahead of schedule? Well, of course, Lisa, you're making my very point. What you have is all sorts of politicians who talk big, write bills, give speeches, go on television, and then you say to them, so how many jobs did you create? So what did you do? What have you managed? What have you actually gotten done? And as you know, in the case of the State Department, there's all sorts of arguments about how many billions of dollars are missing or can't be accounted for or aren't properly with the proper paperwork. If you look at just Hillary Clinton trying to manage her email accounts, you realize what the gap is between her incompetence and dishonesty and the hard-driving entrepreneurial style that Donald Trump is bringing to all this. So in that sense, I think this was a very, very successful step to remind people what it is that makes Donald Trump unique. Let me say that Will Hickson says, what is the number one thing that can be done in these final 2 weeks to help the undecided voters see the importance of electing Trump and the reality of what can happen if they choose otherwise? Well, I think you've got to come down again and again to the cost of Hillary Clinton. When Bob Woodward, who was one of the two investigative reporters in Watergate, has been for years the chief investigative editor of the Washington Post, when he was on Chris Wallace's show on Sunday, and he just said about the Clinton Foundation, look, this is just plain corruption. There's no other word for it except corruption. That should tell you something about how bad the Clintons are going to be in office. They're already corrupt before they get back to the White House. The idea of Bill and Hillary in the White House is guaranteed additional corruption. In addition, she would appoint radical judges to the Supreme Court. So you're talking about not just 4 years of damage, but maybe 20 or 30 or 40 years of damage as radicals change the Constitution, change the rules we live by. So I think those are key arguments. Francis Karnika says, do you think it would help the undecided if Mr. Trump were to announce his cabinet picks before the election? Well, I think you could announce a couple, but I wouldn't go overboard. Tom Dewey did that in 1948. He was ahead. He was sure he was going to win. He was so far ahead they quit taking polls. And when he announced his cabinet, people didn't like it. They sort of said to themselves, it's a little bit arrogant to announce that before you're elected. I think as he did with judges, where he listed people that he would consider, I think he could certainly announce the kind of people. You know that a Rudy Giuliani would be tremendous, either as Attorney General or in the Department of Homeland Security. Would be a great example. You know that General Flynn, who's done such a great job on intelligence and counterterrorism, he would be, I think, a great national director of intelligence. You know that somebody like John Bolton, Ambassador Bolton, would be a tremendous potential Secretary of State. And I think if you were to say, here are 5 or 10 people, the kind I'm thinking of, so people get a sense of the stability, the level of competence, the kind of approach. But I think to actually start naming them might actually backfire as people think, that's a bit too much. Amy Benjamin, does the government need to change from budgetary accounting, where they are incentivized to spend everything they're allocated? Absolutely. The government also needs to find some way to invest strategically. If you had a 1-year budget, like the Appropriations Committee deals with, you could never buy your home because you'd have to consider your entire mortgage in 1 year, and you couldn't do it. In common everyday life, whether it's buying a car or paying off a credit card or saving up to go to college or buying a home, we understand the idea of more than 1 year budgeting. But the federal government in many ways is trapped in a system which does not allow us to think through the totality, particularly if you look, say, at healthcare, where there are times when if we invest more money, we actually save in the long run. So as we see, for example, the beginning of regenerative medicine and the ability to grow out of your own cells, so you don't have a kidney transplant, you get a kidney replant. In 1 year of scoring, that'll be more expensive than kidney dialysis. But if you look at how long somebody stays in dialysis, what it does to their earning power, what it does to their income, what it does to the taxes they pay, it's probably dramatically cheaper to use regenerative medicine to grow a new kidney rather than to trap somebody into a very limited lifestyle at great expense going to a professional facility for kidney dialysis. That would be an example. Let me also mention briefly, I want to thank everybody who has bought Treason, our new novel about terrorism. People ordered so many copies from Amazon that they literally ran out. And they have a whole new printing coming from our publisher, and they're going to get caught up. But it's fascinating to me that literally they were being sold faster than our publisher could deliver it. I also want to thank everybody who has been buying Ellis the Elephant, Volume 6. Hail to the Chief. Ellis meets 13 key presidents. It's a particularly appropriate book during the presidential election year leading up to the inauguration in January. It's for 4 to 8 year olds. And of course, this is the sixth that we have had. So the list is really doing well. She has 6 books now for 4 to 8 year olds in which Ellis the Elephant helps teach them American history. I'm very proud of her, and I'm very grateful to those of you who have bought the Ellis the Elephant series. I also want to thank everybody who both looked at my explanation of the Gettysburg speech and who forwarded it to other people. We've had, I think, over 3,200,000 views so far. That's really pretty remarkable for something which was a positive explanation of what we're doing. So I think that is really made me feel good. I hope that those of you who have seen it feel like it's really worth sharing with your friends. Those of you who haven't seen it, I hope you'll go to my Facebook page and pull it up. It's really pretty impressive. And finally, somebody called in and said, how can they get a signed copy of Treason? Both Treason and Duplicity and Hail to the Chief are available at Gingrich Productions. If you'd like to go, you go to the store at Gingrich Productions, and we'd love to sign it. We can both personalize it or just plain sign it, whichever you like. But we do like to give people a chance to have a personally signed copy of our books, and we're very proud of them. So I'm delighted to have this chance to report to you, and I look forward to more opportunities in the near future.